All right, folks, here we go. Yes, on this Wednesday. Good afternoon, one and all. Should be a clear connection as we continue to move along. A little more of a mild day on this Wednesday, without question. Folks, we're going to be beginning in just a couple moments. We are a few moments away, bringing you up to speed. All the news. Remember, if you're on Facebook, you can share that you are watching. That's always nice. Yep. How about Gina Raimondo back in the news? Queena is back. We're going to talk about that. I love this. With the Providence Journal, Governor Mckee lays out his vision. That's interesting. He's the governor. What's taking so long? What do you mean he lays out his vision? You also have that driver, the crash. We're going to talk about that as well. But we are going to begin in just a couple moments. There's Bill and Henry B. Yes, no plan Dan is exactly right. Good morning from Las Vegas. Yes. All my friends at Vegas. Yep. And there's Brenda. That's exactly right, Cheryl. As we actually are developing more followers in the Las Vegas area, which is nice. No plan, Dan. He doesn't. So we're going to be beginning just 3 minutes. 3 minutes. But much improved weather. My goodness. We're going to be beginning just... Audio sounds good to me. We're going to roll with it. Yep. Boy, what a witness in the Brian Walsh case. I mean, that is still going on. I keep going back and forth. But to me, at this point, it's almost reached absurd that there's so many other things. Hi there, Janet Dwyer. You know, folks, like everyone else, it's a busy time of year, sitting in a courtroom all day. The only reason to go would be a chance to see, hi there, Elizabeth, a psychopath up close. But other than that, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. I want to commend the Massachusetts State Police did a fantastic job at that investigation. So I believe Pete should have our sound, and that should be good to go. Yes, there's everyone. Let me just double check, but I can't imagine there would be signed on nice and early to make sure that Pete would have plenty of time. Folks, never easy, but yes, Pete says we're good to go. Okay. Now, again, I would like to, there we go. Just remind people. So right now we're live on Facebook. We're all live on YouTube, and we're live on X. Only I get to, I think we only I get to see the combined. So I recognize it's a busy time during the course of the day, but this is the time that works, and we get to be live on radio and our platforms, and always live on depetro.com. But just know, we continue build our following on YouTube. I forget how many followers we have on YouTube. Facebook, obviously, remains our top platform. But our YouTube growth this year has been spectacular. Okay, almost 73,000 followers on YouTube. And we'll get there, folks. It's been quite the year. There's Tom. Folks, thank you for all your support, all our subscribers, all the star senders. You make the program go. When will Road Patrol return? As soon as it warms up a little bit. It's almost impossible to do it in this weather. So, folks, we're going to start. It is 1:06 on this Wednesday, December 10th. And I want to remind you, obviously, this is the time to stop in. And people are looking at different options for Christmas gifts. Yes, you could go and get whoever whoever, members of the family, something that would they may use, they may not use, but something that I can tell you that they would love would be some of the wonderful Christmas decorations and various things they have right at PR Landscape Girls and Garden Center, because it's everything Christmas. So stop in, there they are. They are, Christmas season is well underway. Everything for decorating your home or business. Remember, they have the Fraser fir trees, balsam trees, potted live trees, a custom handmade wreath, 10 to 60 inches in size. That's a great gift. They also have Christmas swag, as they call it, and mistletoe. And don't forget, at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, they also have great roping and cut greens, decorative pots, cemetery baskets. Christmas crafts make a great gift. You know, one thing, when you give a Christmas gift ornament or craft, it's going to be used, and it's used at least once a year, than more than some of the other gifts you can get. And gift certificates are available. They're open every day. Stop in and see them. This has been just a fantastic year. Actually, their best year ever at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Stop in and see them, folks. Local business, and they grind it. 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown, right off of Route 4. This is Debbie. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. So everyone is buzzing about what we have posted on depetro.com. And I've received 3 messages from people today. You know, I can't believe everyone in my office is talking about what's on your website. And I'm not surprised by that. I also want to remind people that other media could pick up on it. They just choose not to. They already then move on to the next story that they want to do. But depetro.com, and I'll talk about what we have posted. And it's brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Remember, they can handle large groups. So let's just say, especially this time of year, and someone suddenly says, last minute, let's get a big group together. Let's have a reunion. We have a large group of people that want to go out. The Coesit Inn, they can handle it. They're open 7 days a week, lunch, dinner. They have a great lounge, and it's a large restaurant since 1977. One of the things that I like about it is that it's very spacious. You can spread out, and they can handle large groups. As I mentioned, we had lunch there on a Saturday just a couple of weeks ago, and there was a collation lunch in front of us, but it's not secluded rooms. So it's an open floor plan, but everyone has their privacy. There was a birthday party down to the left. There was a collation lunch there. We were enjoying a nice lunch there. And then there was a bridal shower in the front of it. But it's all open. And of course, the bar area is great. The Coesit Inn, now they also have the coffee at Coesit. Pop in and try it. It's just fantastic. And they are proud sponsors of the website, depetro.com. It is, stop in and see them, my friends at the Coesit Inn. So I want to start off and mention, because, yep, that's exactly right. That's a very good idea. Get a whole set of power tools, just in case someone, yeah, that's right. And you don't want to bother the authorities, like the Brian Walsh case. Let me just touch on the Brian Walsh case. I have been following it. I was going back and forth on whether or not I was going to cover it. Obviously now the Commonwealth is getting ready, pretty close to finishing their case. And I think they have put on a very good case. There was a witness this morning. And the thing about the Brian Walsh case, so this is the case out of Cohasset, and this lovely young woman. And I've been watching some of the coverage on Court TV, which I do enjoy. I do enjoy their coverage, obviously. And what I have noticed about it is the scenario that I see the Brian Walsh case on a Walsh case. And if you haven't followed it, I think some people have, but when she first went missing, and this was the very beginning, of 2022. And we went up there. And that was the first time I was actually kind of experimenting with TikTok live and doing the various things. So what is really come into play for those that maybe you have followed it, but I caught some of the commentary on Court TV, and they said it was all about the affair, that he killed her because she had an affair. To me, that's not my interpretation, how I view the Brian Walsh on a Walsh case. He was someone, he is no question about it. To me, he's proven to be a psychopath. His family comes from some means. As I've also touched on, he was involved with art forgery. So you have people that are willing to spend large amounts of money, but they want the real thing. And Brian Walsh, so to me, that takes you into the insight regarding the type of criminal. As I've mentioned, there's that great line in Heat when Al Pacino and Robert De Niro at the diner, and Al Pacino, Vincent, he says to him, Hannah, some guy's just looking to go back. And Robert De Niro, who is Neil McCauley, he says, do I look like I'm wearing a Born to Lose tattoo trying to hold up a liquor store? I am never going back. The type of crime it says a lot, and I've covered, it says a lot about the individual. So Brian Walsh, think about that. For someone to feel that they could pull off an art forgery, when you have people that are willing to pay large amounts of money for a painting, $400,000 for a painting, $500,000 for a painting, these are people, number one, of means, number two, generally intelligent, and number three, they would be cautious with that type of investment, maybe even more. He was caught, convicted, 3 Warhols that were forgery. So to me, it says something about his insight, his psyche, that he feels that he could fool these people. Well, it didn't go well. Now, part of his condition, Brian Walsh now, they allowed him to remain on home confinement because he was home with the 3 boys. And then the mother in Swampscott was going back and forth. So Anna Walsh, who was from Serbia, met him when she was a waitress, and she's young, and he basically conned her. She thought he was of means, or at least his family was, that he was an art dealer. He fooled her into thinking something that he was not. She was really coming into her own. And so much so that she was in Washington, D.C., real estate, base pay of $220 with bonus $300 large. Brian, not so much, more in the 50,000 range for whatever he was doing. But anyhow, just to speed it up, she bought a townhouse, and it looked like he was going to have to go to prison. Clearly, the relationship had cracks. So I spoke with the person that helped her decorate her townhouse in Washington, D.C. for her 3 young boys who were going to come live with her. And he was adamant that if the boys go to live with you, they're going to put me in federal prison, because part of the charade that he was carrying on was he needed to be on home confinement to care for his 3 boys. So things are boiling over. She obviously misses her boys. She's a very beautiful, late 30s, got a great job, highly likable, highly dependable, good circle of friends in D.C. And she, unfortunately, is still married to this schlub bum back in Cohasset who did the art forgery and got convicted for it. So what happens is she is saying, I'm going to have them move to D.C. with me. And while she's in D.C., and she would have to fly to D.C. and then back home on the weekends to see the boys, and it's so missing from her life. A young mother, and her 3 adorable young sons are young, and she could provide for them and have a nice life in D.C. and get away from him. So She did get involved with son, but it's not like he was great. He was going to be headed to federal prison. He's at home with them. He was on home confinement, house arrest. The only thing he was to do was go to the mother's condo in Swampscott. So fast forward, she did get involved with someone, but what the Massachusetts State Police have uncovered was Brian Walsh has pled guilty to disposing of her body and dismembering her body. And it's so ghoulish. And they show him at Lowe's and these various things, and he's buying all these things, shopping, and he's not panicked. And he's buying a hacksaw, and the Google searches how to dispose of a body. What's the best way to cut up a body? I mean, it's so horrible, let alone Anna Walsh, this tiny little thing, 5'2", 105 pounds, mother to these three young boys. But what this trial has showed was he invites a friend over for dinner. Basically, I think probably unknowingly, this man was the alibi. So this man testified this morning or testified in court. They finally brought him in, and very smart man, thorough man, thoughtful, very cautious. The people that they've brought in, first of all, the guy that she got involved with in DC, he seemed pretty impressive. This guy also seemed impressive. But what I found is the final nail, essentially, in the Brian Walsh case coffin, is the fact that he contacted this man. Think of this. This man had dinner with them New Year's Eve and leaves at 1:30. 3 days later, he calls this man, Jem. Is it Jim or Jem? Well, it's both. No, it's Jem. Jem, that's a line from The Town when the character Claire is saying, is it Jim or Jem? And he's saying, well, it's both. The nuns used to say, you're going to have this one. He's a real gem. But his name was Jim Coughlin. So anyhow, he said, well, Brian, when did she leave Anna Walsh? And Brian Walsh told Jem, this man, who looked like, he looks like like a character out of a film. He looks like a college professor. He looks he carries himself in a nice way and very particular and very thoughtful with his answers. But he said, she had to leave to go back to Washington on a work emergency. And so this mutual friend who had dinner with them said, a work emergency? She's in commercial real estate. What type of work emergency would be on New Year's Day that she would have to fly back to New York, or to Washington, D.C., excuse me? That doesn't make sense. Brian Walsh said she took an Uber to Logan this morning around 6:30. So he said the mutual friend that had dinner with them testified, did you have a fight? Did something happen where then she just went back to D.C.? And Brian Walsh says to the friend, and he testified to this, there was no argument. You were there. You were there and saw there was no fight. To me, that strikes me as the man realized he was actually being brought in and invited to New Year's Eve dinner with Brian and Anna Walsh, really as an alibi. As an alibi. There was no fight. You were there. You saw us. You're my alibi that there was no fight. Now, the evidence that they have on this Anna Walsh case, Brian Walsh case, and I want to map out specifically what they're talking about happened here, but I want to stay on schedule. This portion of the program is brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, call Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling needs, always online at propaneplus.com. Remember, you can depend on Propane Plus. Now, their website 47 at propaneplus.com. You can depend on Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling. Call them in Rhode Island, 401-885-4209, or in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. So Brian Walsh had been searching leading up to New Year's, what states to get divorced in. And then he starts Googling things like, can you collect life insurance even if they can't find the body? But what they have uncovered are blood stains on a rug. And so here's what seemingly they seem unsure how he did it. But what I think happened was they have a room in the basement that has a door, and that's where he dismembered the body. And I wonder, now keep in mind, it's the early morning hours of New Year's Day. Their guest leaves at 1:30. He's now going to get to work. She is thinking relationship, things are not great, but she has the 3 boys, going to figure out something to get them to come live with her in DC. So I wonder, I think he lured her to the basement because the boys are upstairs and they didn't find her DNA so much upstairs. So I think maybe he said, and again, perhaps he said, I have a surprise for you in the basement. Or maybe he said, there's something leaking. Did you see what's leaking down there? Something. My point is, I believe some ruse to get her into the basement. It's unclear where he killed her, but it sounds like there was a violent struggle when he killed her. So did he strangle her to death? I'm sure they didn't want a situation where she was screaming, because then maybe the boys, because one of their sons was 6 years old, could wake up. I heard mommy screaming. So you think of, how would someone take someone's life? I mean, not to be too gruesome here, but either maybe a bag over her head to suffocate her. Is it possible? No, there was blood. Was he then stabbing her to death? He's now killed her. She's in the basement, and now he's going to try to figure out how to get rid of her. I found the friend that testified to be very compelling. I think it's the final nail in the coffin on Brian Walsh. All those Google searches. There were just certain instances that he would blame the son. He would say, my son took my phone. When the police were asking about a Google search, he was saying, oh, that's on my son's iPad, as if the 6-year-old was Googling, how do you get rid of a body? How long before a body starts to smell? What's the best way to dismember a body? As if a 6-year-old would be doing that. No, that is a true psychopath that you see. And also, I think there's a lot of elements of, it was a controlling nature. She was, I believe, from Serbia. She was a student and a waitress when he met her. And suddenly she was thriving and doing better than he was. He was headed off to prison. So I think her life was, okay, I met this guy, married him, made a mistake, but we have 3 beautiful children. We're going to get divorced. He's going to go to prison. I'm going to move these boys to DC with me, where she was thriving, her career was thriving. And then he was doing the different searches. What to do? Do I get divorced? And then came up with another plan. I have a better idea. I will, if I kill her, which I believe he did, and I think we all believe that, and then that should keep me out of prison, that I don't have to go to jail. So I think it was about that. My point is, there was a commentator on Court TV saying, so, her affair with William Fastow, remember, there's always going to be motive. I don't think that was motive. Maybe that was, angering him. But I think the element of taking her life on Walsh, I believe it was centered more around this, he is a psychopath. There is something wrong with him. He had felt that he had controlled her, and suddenly he had lost control of her, and he was going to fully lose control of her, and they were going to divorce, and she was going to live in Washington, and he was going to go to federal prison. And he came up with another idea. If I kill her, I can make the argument I still have to stay home. So, of course, that's twisted. The whole thing is twisted. But I think that friend was I thought it was very powerful witnesses. They've had good witnesses here. It's an unusual case where Brian Walsh, they're trying to say, I did dismember her and I did dispose of her body. But he said he was doing the dishes. He came up and she was passed away in bed. What I also find interesting was a couple months ago, let's see, back in the spring, there was a high-profile case, again out of Massachusetts. And I know the criminal defense attorney represented that guy, the Turk. He was a German doctor. And he killed the wife and then put her body in a pond. And so Kevin Reddington, very good criminal defense attorney, represented him. And their defense was there was a heated argument and they were drinking and they were fighting and he strangled her and then he panicked and threw her in the pond. So and he didn't get life in prison. So that was their defense of he panicked and threw her in the pond. My point is that almost makes more sense than Brian Walsh said. He came up to bed from doing the dishes. She was dead. He panicked and then dismembered the body and got rid of the body. The problem with that, why no one believes it, is you see him strolling through Lowe's getting these different devices. He's calm as can be. He sees a camera and he starts fixing his hair. He's not freaked. He's not panicked. He's not even anxious or panicked when he calls the friend and says, I can't find her. She's missing. So, and those actions are not of someone who is I am in a panic. My wife is missing. That the reason he wasn't panicked is he knew she wasn't missing. He knew he had killed her and then was going to get rid of the body. So, but there's another element of the Brian Walsh, Anna Walsh case that is playing out in Dedham right now. And I'm going to touch on that, but I want to remind you about ServPro of Providence. Folks, remember, if you have an emergency, when disaster strikes, you can depend on ServPro of Providence. Fast, thorough, professional. If you have a fire, call ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. Fast, thorough, professional. ServPro of Providence. If you have a fire, you're going to have fire damage, and then you're going to have smoke damage, and then you're going to have water damage when they put out the fire, and then you're going to have mold from all the water. ServPro of Providence. When disaster strikes, count on them. 401-941-5500. The Walsh case also, it's interesting to me. I like this judge, and I know people may not realize it's not your imagination. In our part of the country, the Northeast, our judges are far more defense friendly in other parts of the country. You don't have a lot of tough judges. They're very lenient. In certain parts of the country, you have some tough judges. Texas has some tough judges. Oklahoma has some tough judges. Florida has some tough judges. Georgia does. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, you don't have tough judges. So, but I'll say this. The judge in the Brian Walsh, Anna Walsh, she is very impressive and runs a tight courtroom. What this also has done, the Massachusetts State Police, the Cohasset Police that investigated this, are they the Keystone Cops? No. Was there any corruption with this case? No. Are they trying to frame Brian Walsh? No, of course not. I think it's interesting. 2 different judges, 2 murder investigations, both done in the same year. Somehow, either the Massachusetts State Police are not as stupid as they've been made out to seem. It's not like they grew a brain. I've seen people putting comments, oh, suddenly now they can do it right. Or maybe they did it right before in another high-profile case, but they had a different judge who got steamrolled by ridiculous conspiracy, and then you got the result that you got. So now again, we never know how a jury is going to react. But I think what has stood out to me is how calm he is when he's shopping. He's very calm. So if I'm on the jury, he's shopping. He's calm. Brian Walsh, calm while he's shopping. He is. He even brought one of his sons along with him to get some. Can you imagine? He's buying these drop cloths. He went to Home Goods to get a rug to try to replicate one of the rugs from their home that he used that I believe had blood on it. This is not an easy case because he was able, as frightening as this is, Brian Walsh was able to kill his wife and then dismember his wife and then get rid of the body. They did catch some of the evidence. There's some other things, but if I'm on the jury, what stands out to me is he wasn't panicked. He wasn't frazzled. This was over several days. He wasn't at wit's end. And on top of that, let me also just say, it's not common sense that if you, a 39-year-old healthy woman who went to a boot camp class that morning in, I forget where, South Shore, but you would call 911. You wouldn't, if you suddenly came upstairs, he said he was doing the dishes, came upstairs, she was suddenly deceased in bed, sudden death, no warning, as if she had a brain aneurysm. You would call 911. You would try to resuscitate her. You would be seeking help. You wouldn't say, oh, wow, look at that, she's dead. Well, I guess I better get rid of the body. I mean, it's ridiculous because it is ridiculous. And I think they have done a very, very, I hope he testifies too. I mean, for that, I think I might go if he's going to take the stand. I don't think, I mean, it's possible. We can only hope. But something else stood out to me about Brian Walsh with the recordings they've played of him with police. And he would willfully sit down. He's sitting there with one of his defense attorneys. You can hear children playing in the background. But one of the things that stood out to me was the police were asking him, and then, what did you do then? And then he said, oh, then I called my friend. I'm just going to make up a name. I called my friend Jeanette Lewis. Now, the police are trying to, like, what were your movements that day? I called my friend Jeanette Lewis, and I owed her a phone call, and I went to school with her, and we studied here. And the last time I had seen her, we had dinner at this seafood restaurant, and she had mentioned that there was a painting she wanted. And he just goes into these long, rambling stories that are just complete insanity. Like, buddy, we're just trying to track down who did you talk to, and then I realized that I owed her husband a phone call because I hadn't seen him since we went to the symphony. And then afterwards, we went out for some drinks, and he had recommended a canoe trip I take. And then I told I needed to get in touch with him, tell him that a friend of mine wanted to play in the canoe. Like, he just goes off on these long, rambling stories that just don't lead anywhere and have, I mean, he is a real, it's horrible. He is a real psychopath, and she experienced, tragically, a very violent death. Much like, not exactly like, but the night that Charlotte Lester died. That was a very violent death. That Mark Perkins, they had a blow up. He told Mark Perkins the night he killed Charlotte Lester, the next morning he told the person at Cumberland Farms, oh, we had the ultimate blowout, World War III. My house is like a bloodbath. He told that to the clerk at Cumberland Farms the morning after he had killed Charlotte Lester. And the clerk at Cumberland Farms just nodded and never told the police. Never told, until a week later when the police went in. Do you recognize that guy? Yeah, who is it? Mark. He comes in here for coffee. When's the last time you saw him? Oh, I saw him last week. He was saying a big blow. I mean, not everyone recognizes, like, boy, that's an unusual story. Now, I do want to touch on a couple of the stories at this time, or news at this time. This portion of our program is brought to you. Hey, don't forget to stop in the Queen of Health, Marie, at It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. We do a weekly segment with her. You know, it's great. She has some great gifts in there. So fortunate. Northern Rhode Island is so fortunate to have such a great local retailer business person. Yes, you can order things online, but why not support a local retailer? And Marie is so knowledgeable. She has such a beautiful store. Mendon Road, diagonally across from Davenport Restaurant, that historic white church has the flag out front. She has great local gifts. She has all kinds of nice gifts that you could give, whether it be soap or brushes or some local products. Also, she could do a gift basket with some tea or honey. It's My Health. Stop in and see Marie, the Queen of Health, and there's always things going on there in the weekend. I also want to mention, it may be too late, but if you were in fact thinking of still getting your driveway paved, it's been colder this December more and earlier than it has been in the past. But J. Perry Paving, remember, they have a great package for veterans. Call them 401-732-1730. Free estimate, letter J. Perry Paving. They high quality, fair pricing, exceptional service, and they are a big sponsor. Free estimate any project. You know, can you imagine mom or dad, Christmas Day, Merry Christmas, you're going to get your driveway paved. Talk to them. That's a great gift. Remember, everything doesn't have to be delivered right there Christmas morning. J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. Letter J. Perry Paving. One last note on the Brian Walsh trial. There was a lot of noise before this, and there was a lot of noise because of a Massachusetts State Police detective who worked on this case, and his name is Michael Proctor. And there were people saying Walsh should go free, and you should free. Like, it's so absurd. And now I noticed that the trial has started. And you see this psychopath, and you see the picture of this beautiful young Anna Walsh with her 3 young boys. And you see this maniac shopping for hacksaws and drop cloths and snippets and trash bags and all this other stuff. And then you see his vehicle disposing of her body in Abington and Brockton and at these dumpsters. And you see him pull up and lug a heavy bag there. And what I've noticed is the voices of those people that were saying that Brian Walsh should be set free. I've noticed they've gone quiet now that we're seeing this psychopath in action. No, the Massachusetts State Police and the Cohasset Police, they didn't, I haven't seen, this is not an easy case because you don't have the body. And you have someone who had a big head start, and you have a real, I don't want to say criminal mastermind, but they were unable to locate the body. They did locate some DNA evidence and some of her things at a dumpster right where the mother lived in Swampscott, Mass. But otherwise, it went to the way station. Much like, not to give anyone any ideas, but if someone just as an example, in Coventry, committed a homicide and then dismembered someone or whatever, but then put them in a dumpster somewhere in Coventry. And what happens? The truck comes and it dumps it in. When that stuff hits the landfill in Johnston, good luck. Good luck then trying to locate it. It is needle in a haystack. If it's practically impossible, is what it is. So, but they were able to get enough evidence that I think this has been a very credible case. But we're going to have to wait and see how the jury comes out. Now, I do want to touch on the crash and I'm talking about the woman, and it's really national news. It's also interesting to me what the national news story is. Grammy-nominated musician killed. I'm not going to keep reliving that, but we had people saying you shouldn't put that he was a Grammy award-winning musician because that's to say that his life is more important than others. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean that. Every life is important. Okay, that's not a novel idea, but there are some people that live more newsworthy, noteworthy lives, so to speak, or the circumstances of what happens can be more newsworthy, where then you get that type of coverage. So I'm not going to belabor the point. There are people, for whatever reason, that are stuck in this ridiculous rabbit hole, and they're upset that I had posted Grammy nominated musician. You should not put that. That implies that it doesn't imply anything. If Tom Brady, God forbid, was in a car accident, the news report wouldn't be man in his 40s, dies in accident. It would be Hall of Famer, football legend Tom. So you're saying his death is more important than somebody else? And no, it's not a matter of that. It's how you're reporting things to the public. There were several people that died in Utah back in September by various means. There was one death that got a lot of attention, and that was Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk's death got a lot of attention because of who he was and also the high-profile nature of the death. So you're saying, this is what I get. You're saying Charlie Kirk's death was more important than a man that was hit by a bus. No. Of course, it is tragic and sad for the man that was hit by a bus that day and died. We're talking about how the news is covered is different. That's what I'm trying to. And I'm not going to explain it anymore because there are some people that just get blocked on that. But regarding that crash, now, if you go to DePietro.com, notice, unless I'm missing something, I haven't seen anyone post, hey, we should change the law. We should tighten our law. Keep in mind this woman, that she carries a different name on Facebook, Shannon. But 10 times she was arrested, 10 times for driving without a license. 10 times driving with suspended license. Maybe that should be relooked at. This woman, it should have been made clear to her after, I don't know what the number is, but clearly 10 wasn't working. There should be a penalty. If you do this more than 4 times, you are spending 2 years at the ACA. Like the laws, here's what troubles me about this Shannon Godbout, is the laws that we have were not enough of a deterrent to stop her from getting behind the wheel. Now, I also see she was certificate of completion, adult drug court. We have this. There's her certificate on DePietro.com. There's the judge, the Honorable Amanda Valentino, February 7th of 2025. Shannon Godbout, adult drug court, certificate of completion. Well, apparently she wasn't as committed to the whole thing as some people thought. There she is. But I picked out also. Now, the rest of the media could have this stuff. They choose not to. But she posted on that day, graduation day is finally here. It's been a long, winding road, but I finally completed the requirements of adult drug court. Everyone used to tell me it was a setup. Who did? But for me, it was the extra support I needed to stop slipping up and finally get my stuff all the way together. Thanks to my kids and family for always loving and supporting me through my journey. On to bigger, better things. Shout out to my attorney, Michael Lynch, holding my hand in the process. No more locked doors. I can confidently say the ACI will never see me again. I'm not going backwards. Anybody that's reading this, if you need support to get clean, feel free to hit me up on here. If I can do it, anybody can do it. We do recover. The ACI will never see me again. I don't think that that is aging very well. My point is, no one, I don't see, and I follow the news very closely. I don't see anyone saying we need to relook at the laws. We need to, if this is someone who does learn, if this is someone who I'm clean, maybe they needed to test her more often. Maybe after, oh, I don't know, the 8th time that she was caught driving with behind the wheel now with a suspended license, maybe it shouldn't be that you just keep repeatedly where you just continue like no harm, no foul. If in fact you get caught driving without a license, because this is someone that clearly to me pushed it to the edges and just there was no line, which comes back to you're going to hear a number of people, I don't want to be redundant about it, but a number of individuals that will announce they're running for office. We still don't, I still have not. We just don't seem to hear anyone mention, not that I hear, anyone mention anything about law and order. I get sometimes, as I've said, some people feel that the only race where they talk about law and order would be that of someone running for attorney general. I am telling you, I think people would respond to it. I know I would. If someone came out and said, I'm going to be, there should be more in law and order. We need to crack down on crime. We can't, have these, that she's a habitual offender. She is someone that they push it to the limit. There were no guardrails with her. She had done time as an adult more than once. But the fact that really stands out to me is driving with a suspended license 10 times. That there needed to be, in my thought, there needed to be a tougher penalty regarding that. Because clearly, whatever laws were there to try to protect people, they weren't strict enough. They weren't strict enough. Folks, I want to remind you about Kids Club on the Pike. Perfect opportunity. Now, maybe you want to throw a little Christmas party for a group of children. Kids Club on the Pike is perfect. I heard from another parent where one of the parents wanted to have all the kids. It's a youth basketball team. And it was a nice thought. They wanted to bring the kids to Dave & Buster's. 10-year-old kids. One of the kids got robbed at the food court at the mall outside of Dave & Buster's. Folks, when are you going to learn? Kids Club on the Pike, that type of thing is not going to happen. Kids Club on the Pike, perfect for any type of youth celebration, for maybe birthday party, Christmas party, but they also offer before and after school care and preschool. They have half and full day programs for preschool children ages 3 through 5, before and after school care, transportation, before and after care for school age children 5 through 12. They also now have the Warwick location. Kids Club on the Pike, right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line. Call Kristen, 401-443-5336. Now, Governor Mckee, he's trying to expand. He really doesn't like Channel 12. He will go on with Dan Janik on NBC 10, Connect to the Capitol, where he likes to say happy holidays. Governor McKee's one of those happy holidays type people. I say Merry Christmas. He says happy holidays. So he's decided he needs to try to expand. And the Providence Journal has a story. McKee launches affordability agenda and proposes Social Security tax cut. Facing a tough re-election fight, Mckee proposed policies help Rhode Island's the cost of living, starting with a tax cut for retirees. And they have a picture of him, and he's looking out the window, and he's trying to build a report and get some coverage in the Providence Journal. So my point is, here's another reason why I think this will fall short. And that is, let's take him at his word. Let's take former mayor of Cumberland, former lieutenant governor, Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee at his word. What took so long? Now that he's in a tough re-election fight, which I think, if we had legitimate elections, I would view it as an impossible re-election fight. But this business, anything he's proposing now, my response is, he has been governor since March of 23. March of 23, he's been governor. And just now, with an election next year, which would make him governor until 2030, I have no interest in any of his proposals. That soccer stadium is, there's nothing sound about it. It cost us. It's not a matter of whether or not it's a nice soccer stadium and people enjoy going there. But the notion right now, how I regard him, that he has these ideas. Rhode Island is not kind and is very unfriendly to retirees. Rhode Island is terrible. How many people, I know some people don't get this, but there are so many people that say the problem with the state is you can't, sounds grim, but you can't die here because of the death tax, of how they go after the estate. I know of successful people, and they're angry about that. I know a successful business owner who's forced to live in Florida. If he is so upset with Rhode Island policies that should he, and someday would die, that essentially his family would be forced to sell the company. Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee, he could have this time, he could have made Rhode Island more friendly for retirees. He could have made it far more friendly regarding the death tax. You don't need all this stuff. The best way to stimulate the economy would be to lure companies that provide high-paying jobs. It's insanity with the lack of housing. Rhode Island is 50th in the country with housing. So my mindset is, whatever plans he had, he's had more than enough time to execute it. I don't think he should be given any deadlines. I don't care to hear any more of his plans. I don't think he's competent, and I don't think he runs a competent administration. Now, I also want to mention about Gina Raimondo in the news. Now, some people aren't going to like this, but you got to think of, she's very strategic. She's very strategic. She's very calculating is another good word. Before I do that, two other quick mentions. Number one, do you need a plumber? You do. Call J&B Plumbing today. J&B. If you need a plumber, 401-743-9153. Plumbing repair and service. They can repair damaged water pipes, repair clogged pipelines, replace water heaters. J&B, 401-743-9153. The other thing is, make a huge difference in your home, in value of your home, if you get your garage epoxied. It's not a huge job, but you need to do it now, or get yourself on the list for spring with Corey, 401-283-9815. They do a fantastic job. Quality seal coating, 401-283-9815, especially for those you epoxy garage. So I think it's interesting that former governor, former cabinet secretary, Gina Raimondo, has gotten herself, she's now on the Costco board. Now, there's no Costco in Rhode Island. But what I find interesting about that, and some people may dismiss it, and that is that what's interesting about Raimondo is, to me, obviously, and some people may not get this, she is definitely running for president in 2028. definitely running for president. She was a governor. She was the cabinet secretary. She goes around and appears at different forums. She has built up big networking. I don't think some people recognize the contacts that she has made when she was cabinet secretary, secretary of commerce. I don't think people realize that. There's no reason you would know a lot of this. But what you have to understand is through her actions, these trade missions going to China, dealing with different individuals, she's helped some pretty high profile people make a lot of money. And I mean like a lot of money. So, and I recognize some people don't like her, hold it against her, what happened with your pension. I understand all of that, what she did during COVID. But the Costco thing to me is interesting because to me, she wants to be with the field, an expert on all the different items that Costco might have. I'll bet she tried to get on the board. I don't know this, but probably get on the board of Walmart. She wants something like to be on the board, probably not BJ's, but like a Costco or a Walmart, because they have so many different products and it's such an identifiable brand. And I view that as she wants to be on a stage and be able to rattle off prices at a Costco and want to be able to say that she shops at Costco. And some people can dismiss that, but you look at the field for 28 and they're talking about the governor of Illinois. They're talking about the governor of California. They're talking about the former vice president, Harris. And you have Raimondo sitting there saying, you have maybe AOC kicking the tires on a run, but you have Raimondo sitting there saying, I can beat those people. I'm not convinced that she can. But I also want to mention, you got to realize when you're the head of commerce, you deal with someone, and it could be a company that, who knows where they're based? Maybe they're based in California. Maybe they're based in Texas. I don't know, somewhere in the country. And they make a little tiny device. But this little tiny device they need, it has to be in all these products. And these are billion-dollar companies. And you have a meeting with the head of that company. And he said, I have a problem. If we could get my little product, this little device, imported into India, it'll be a huge help. And that's phone calls and that's work. And the Commerce Secretary makes it happen. And it's like a blip on the screen because the stock of that company goes up $2. But that's a windfall for the family. People like that will donate to her campaign. All right. We will keep an eye on the Brian Walsh case and some of the other news. As far as the election, we still have a long way to go. But Governor Mckee trying to make the argument he deserves 4 more years. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the top of the hour news.